evening. I'm William Ferguson. This is Common Sense. Over this weekend, I have put together a some clips, okay? And this to me is what the Democrats are aiming at. Absolutely no sense whatsoever. This is Cortez, the young female from the Bronx, New York, that is a Democrat socialist, or a socialist Democrat, whatever you want to say, giving a speech in the chambers in Washington, D.C. Okay? And it's about the shutdown, right? Let's listen to what's going on here.
Mr. Obed's dream did come true. He's been a federal employee for 14 years, has two children, and a mortgage for his home in the Morris Park neighborhood of the Bronx. He studied hard, got his pilot's license, and is now an air traffic controller supervisor at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York City.
How was that? Pretty good? It's about an air traffic control supervisor. And obviously, this woman has no concept of anything in life. All right, I did some research. Air traffic controller supervisors, the average pay is $150,000 a year. And where this guy lives in the subdivision in the Bronx, New York, the average house costs $500,000. Okay. And he's got two kids. Okay, that seriously counts. So let's look at this. Where was the solution? She told a nice bedtime story about an air traffic controller that's probably not even affected at all by this shutdown. If he had any mind at all, he would have had money set back in case of something like this happening. Most people do that. It's a funny thing. We learn as we live. When I was younger, I was a mechanic, a power sport mechanic. And I lived in a region of the country that was called a tourist trap. And so in the summertime, money was fat, real fat, because there were tourists and they would bring their toys, and they would break their toys. And I would fix their toys and make a lot of money. However, once school went back in to session, everybody left. And so you learned you have to save enough money to make it through the winter. You don't just spend all your money during the summer, or you won't make it through the winter. And so I learned. And in that learning, it carried through. So I'm going to guess, this is just a guess, that this air traffic control supervisor that makes $150,000 a year on average didn't affect him at all. He's probably got some money set aside just in case. He's probably aware that he does have a government job, and it's quite possible that at some point in time, the government could have a partial close, and he would not get a paycheck. But then he would also be smart enough to realize that, well, he's still putting in hours. And if he's still putting in hours, at some point in time, he will get a paycheck for all the hours that he has put in. Therefore, any money that he has spent from his emergency fund, once he gets a paycheck, can immediately be put back into the emergency fund money. Wow. So, what's the point of it all? What she said made no sense whatsoever, because all she said was a story about an air traffic control supervisor. Big deal. There's a lot of people that have a lot of jobs. Where is the solution? You were voted into office as a public servant. Your job, your assignment in Washington, D.C., is to find solutions to problems that make sense. What you said made absolutely no sense whatsoever. None. Except you're trying to make a sob story for some guy living in the Bronx in New York that probably is not going to be affected whatsoever by the partial shutdown of the federal government. Now, let's look at it like this. If he's got 2 children, this is just a guess, okay? This is just a wild guess. He has a wife. And another wild guess is she works too. Wow. So the entire Bronx in New York is going to starve to death because President Trump is not going to budge on his deal over the border wall, which protects a majority of the United States citizens. Because, you see, heroin comes across that border. And I've heard over and over again, a lot of that heroin comes through the ports of entry into the United States over the border. Okay. But if you tighten up those ports of entry to where it makes it not so easy to get drugs through, then what? Well, let's go to a place where the border's wide open. We can truck it through there. We can use off-road vehicles, whatever we can find, to get the drugs over the border into the United States, to hopefully overdose people so they die. That is what the Democrat, socialist, liberal idiots in Washington aren't considering. Drugs are killing people. People are killing people. I even watched a little thing. It's a little video on Nancy Pelosi's raising. She was raised by a gangster. Surprise, surprise, huh? Yeah, right. Seriously. Her father and other people in her expanded family were gangsters. They were as crooked gets. And it was also a thought, why would Nancy Pelosi want a border wall when, if she learned from her dad, drugs make money? Little kickback from the cartels there, Nancy? Are we getting it? See, I'm not trusting anybody anymore. Except those that earn their trust. Fox News. They seem to report what is true. Because they don't repeat what every other news channel station is saying. like all the rest of the news channels. When there is something that's been manufactured on CNN, you can bet it's been manufactured on MSNBC, CBS, and all the other ones because they just repeat each other. Fox News doesn't do that. They try to speak the truth. They try to let the American public know what is going on because we need to know that. Okay, another reason that I put this together is to show that the Democrat Party is actually following this little girl that came from the Bronx in her far left thinking, in her ideas of how to run the country. Okay, remember I was talking about saving money over the summer to make it through the winter. Okay, my first winter down there, I didn't realize that you had to do that. And I called that a kick in the teeth experience because I had no idea I was going to be flat broke, nothing. And I was going to have to scrape through the winter doing whatever I could. Cortez is nowhere near old enough to have had that kick in the teeth moment, to understand truly you're living life. You are playing with other people's lives. That's not what you were voted in for. You were elected to solve problems. And how you ever got elected, I have no clue. Because you are about as bright as a brick. You're as dumb as a bag of hammers. You don't understand anything that's going on. You think that taxing the ultra-rich 70%, that the public of this country are going to buy that? Are you out of your mind? Go ahead, pass that bill. Before it goes into law, everybody that's above the pay scale that you say should pay 70% are going to leave. Then what? Now you've just lost all that precious money. Then what? Then you send the rest of the country into poverty, taking everything, every single thing. In fact, my Wednesday show, it's going to be the rights and responsibilities of the Constitution, of which, Miss Cortez, you have no idea what the Constitution says, what it means, how to interpret it, how to live it, how to be responsible in conducting yourself as a representative of a district in New York. Now, if the people in your district in New York want to be led by a little girl that has no clue as to what's going on, so be it. Leave the rest of the country alone. We are quite fine in what we are doing, except for California. But that's a Pelosi place, and that place smells of feces. It's riddled with hypodermic needles from drug addicts. Okay? That's not the America I grew up in. I grew up in the America where a handshake was a deal. You didn't have to have 10,000 pages of a written contract to form a deal. You shook hands, and that was it. A man's word was a man's word. President Trump said, therefore he does. And the mission gets accomplished. He's going to build a wall. Okay, well, maybe he won't do it. But the people of this country heard, and we know that a wall will work. It will keep the drugs out. It will keep the illegal immigrants out. It will lower our taxes. It will help us, the American people, Forget you Democrat, liberal, socialists. Go live in your own little world. We, the people of the United States, there's over $20 million already in order to build our barrier, ours, for the people of this country. And anymore, I don't care what you liberal, Democrat, socialists do. However, you still, every last one of you, has the opportunity to stop. Look at what you're doing and think about it. Turn away from it. And if you read the Bible, you'll find out what the truth is. Imagine that. There had to be some form of information for us human beings to know what the truth is, or we'd all be lost running around like chickens with our heads cut off. It had to be that way. It's the only way it could work if you think about it. Okay? That makes sense. And it makes me sick that this country is losing common sense. Common sense is getting lost in this country. And it's really very sad. It really is. That's all I've got for now. Please pray for the leadership of this country, first responders, military, and such. And I ask that you join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 Central Time for Common Sense.